if you're buying something that has a potential opportunity, the biggest opportunities to make money are when the market is overwhelmingly mispricing an asset and they're against you. And being that person that lives outside the consensus is a very tough thing to be, especially as you see red flooding into your screen.
What's up, world, and welcome to another episode of the Super Investor Show. Now, we are ending the year with a bang, arguably one of our biggest guests today, but that's subjective, especially if you're in the H-bar community. Now, if it's your first time on this show, this is a show for investors like you who realize it's good to learn from your own mistakes, but hey, it's better to learn from others. And who better than some of the wealthiest, smartest minds on this planet? And today, I'm joined, and he said I can give him whatever title I wanted. The king of the open social marketplace, Calaxy, for creators, by creators, on Hedera. So this is what we talk about all the time, right? We're invested in these tokens with utility. What's being built to drive that adoption? Well, let's meet the king that's leading that charge. Solo, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And you don't mind me calling you the king of Calaxy?
There's Spencer might have a word or two about that.
I'm sorry, Spencer.
We can be dual monarchs if that works better.
Yeah, very, very in theme as well with being joint rulers. We don't want to give any titles above and below. So Spencer, apologies for insulting you, but Solo, you're here with me right now, sir. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, how would you define Solo?
That's a great question. So Solo Ceesay is a 28-year-old entrepreneur based out of Texas. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, went to go study at the University of Pennsylvania, where I worked at the Wharton School, or went to school at Wharton, and then ended up working in traditional financial services as an investment banker. I'd say Solo is a very interesting person, has a lot of different hobbies, talents, and is a disruptor at core. And so it's super important to me to be able to continue to push emerging technologies and continue to challenge the paradigm that we currently live in for the future.
Wow. That is a powerful intro. I need to work on my own one. Well, so we know that you're multidimensional, and somehow you ended up in this dimension. So tell us a little bit more about Calaxy, the past, present, and the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So Calaxy is the open social marketplace for and by creators. Over the years, you've changed a lot. And so as mentioned before, Spencer Dinwiddie of the Dallas Mavericks is my co-founder. And he had the brilliant idea a number of years ago to tokenize himself through the use of blockchain technology. So he became the first NBA player to securitize himself and got sued in the process. We got sued in the process. At the time, I was an investment banker. And so backing up a little bit, my older brother is best friends with Spencer. And he came to us one day saying, you, Solo, what you do every day at work doesn't make any sense to me, but what Spencer is wishing to do with this contract makes equally no sense to me. You guys should talk. And that's kind of how this journey started. And so he became the first NBA player to securitize himself and got sued in the process. He fell on a lot of swords. I guess we both fell on a lot of swords and took a lot of bullets. But it gave way to a lot of different emerging technologies, especially when you think about NBA Top Shot and how other sports leagues have embraced blockchain technology. But that's kind of how we started. Moving forward, we saw a bigger opportunity with the pandemic and the use of monetization platforms like Cameo, Patreon. They've been able to build these really big, robust businesses on centralized infrastructure. And we thought that we had the bright idea to accelerate these platforms and make them better and more efficient through the use of Hashgraph technology in particular. And so that's when we decided to create a marketplace for creators to be able to monetize and connect with their fans, as well as have a spot for the top 10% of a creator's dedicated fan base to hang out and have traditional and really nice exclusive experiences between the creator and the fan.
Powerful. And what a story. And I know that you've done other interviews, so I 100% recommend people Google your name and listen to the story at length about how you got your war scars, but more importantly, the future. We talked offline or before the show that right now, of course, things have reached a plateau, specifically, within the H Barbarian community. What exciting pieces of news could you share with us, Solo, to give us hope that there are brighter days ahead and this too will pass?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing that we've been battling over the last couple years is the idea of the unclear regulatory environment. And so I think with the upcoming regulation that we expect to have in the upcoming year, I think we have everybody has something to be excited about, just given that now we're going to have a little bit more clarity on the way in which that we can build and promote safe building for creators and builders of all different types. And so that's something that I'm super excited about. In terms of Calaxy's role, we really hope to bring mainstream adoption to Hedera. And so we want to use, through our user experience, something that makes it so easy for people to be using hashgraph technology without even knowing it. And I think we've been able to devise and build the user journeys that accomplish exactly that. And I think behind that is a very powerful next step into what Hedera's adoption looks like. When you think about the current makeup of supporters of the Hedera ecosystem, they're pretty deep into blockchain technology. They're actually probably even deeper than the average DGen because they're up to speed on a new technology called Hashgraph, which nobody knows about. And so that the H Barbarian is a very interesting person. And I think in the next 12 to 24 months in Calaxy's role in that is that H Barbarians might look completely different in the future. They might not know much about blockchain technology at all. And I think that's something that we should welcome into our community, that differentiation and thought, that diversity of thought, just because our ecosystem will continue to grow and mature in the way in which some other ones that are a little bit less nascent have. And so that's something that I'm super excited about. And Calaxy's role specifically is to help kind of push us up that adoption curve and bring in people who might not have otherwise discovered these technologies a little bit earlier in the next year. And so as we get out and get active, get loud, we're super excited to play that role for this community.
Amen. I personally thank you for the work that you're doing and will continue to do to welcome those people, because at the end of the day, they won't speak the same language as, unquote, the day ones, right? And that's okay, like you said. And that mass adoption doesn't look like more H Barbarians as we know them today. In fact, they may not even know about Hedera or Hashgraph, and that's okay, because I constantly say that mass adoption, we'll all use it, we'll all experience it, but we won't see it. Exactly. And so you're putting that curtain up so people won't see it, but you're giving them a great experience in the meantime. And if they want to come behind the curtain, hey, there's a great community here welcoming you to educate you, if you're ready to go down that rabbit hole.
Exactly.
So thank you for breaking that down for us, Solo. And I want to give you that chance, because although we want to know about you as a human, I know you're doing some remarkable work. But on the theme of the show, I ask our guests 2 questions. 1, what's your superpower? And 2, what's your weakness? So we'll start with what makes you so successful. As a super investor, Solo, of all these many years that you've been on this planet, what would you say your superpower is?
I would say my superpower comes from having a pretty robust understanding of many different markets. And so while I was at Citi, in particular, the investment bank, I had the opportunity to work in both sales and trading as well as investment banking. So having a very robust understanding of the traditional financial system helped me understand the merits of blockchain and decentralized technology even further in its application and use in the financial system that we build for tomorrow. And so I think that's what's made it very easy for me to very look at these different emerging technologies through a lens that is pretty robust in nature. And I think that's something that's a little bit lacking in our ecosystem, just given that it's so nascent, whether it's Hedera, whether it's blockchain, Ethereum, all the types of people that invest in crypto assets. Their frameworks for doing so is a bit different than the one that I might have. So I've been able to kind of learn the way in which that the masses in this space move and make investments, but also applying the different lessons that I learned over the many years through my traditional education, as well as my vocational experience, to be able to take a different look and perspective at things. And then lastly, I think it's helped me a ton when it comes to the idea of the unclear regulatory environment, just
Mhm.
because I have a better understanding of how these entities work at a high level and what they've done in the past. And so it's made it a little bit easier for me to kind of see how they might take a look at decentralized technologies and hope to regulate them in the future. And so I'd say that's probably my biggest strength, is that I'm very well rounded and I happen to know a decent amount of a lot of different things, which has allowed me to be nimble, as well as help educate people about topics that are a little bit less discussed or known about within the community.
And that definitely makes me envious. All right? Jealousy and envy, two different things. Envy is where I see what you've got, I want what you've got, but I don't wish you didn't have it. Jealousy is I see what you got, I want what you
That's a
got,
good
and I wish
point.
you didn't have it. So please take it as a compliment, Solo. And I'm sure other people as well are envious. Now, hindsight bias is powerful because you can look back and you say, my time at Citi prepared me for where I am right now, amongst
Yeah.
other experiences. For someone watching this right now, and we don't want to put age, but maybe someone who's at the beginning of the investing journey, would you recommend your path, e.g., hey, go get that rounded experience before you decide and settle on a niche? Or would you say, actually, knowing what you know today, crypto, blockchain, Web3, that's where it's at. Hey, double down over here.
I would say the smart investor, this is the super investor show. I'd say the smart investor would want to have a more breadth rather than kind of a, you know, inch wide, mile deep sort of knowledge. And the reason
Mm,
why I say that is because technologies, different types of investments, asset classes, they go in and out of favor all the time. And I think it's super important to understand that. And so whether it's blockchain today, hashgraph tomorrow, or whatever it is, like you need to kind of have a very well-rounded understanding of a lot of different types of things. And so crypto being one of them is it's super important. But if another asset class were to able to pop up tomorrow, you would probably want to be able to take an advantage of those inefficiencies in those capital markets to try and make money. And so I would say the broader knowledge is super
mm,
important. And I also think the pathways that you cross allow you to meet a lot of different people with a lot of different perspectives. And I think a lot of times when you get stuck in the crypto echo chamber, that's where bad things happen. When markets are overwhelmingly positive or negative, that's actually probably a bad thing. I think markets work bestly when you have markets work best when there are differing views in the market. And I think being able to be one of those people that have the entire viewpoint of the market and have a better understanding and framework to evaluate different perspectives are super
mm,
important. And then lastly, too, just understanding how money flows through our financial system is super important. And so, like, when people are taking money and when the Fed is hiking rates, what that usually does for sovereign funds or what it does for different real money accounts and things like that, it allows you to better anticipate the flow in which those flows might come into a particular asset class, which obviously has an impact on price. And so I think being able to kind of better understand, the economy from a macro perspective is super important. There's a lot of people that are deep into crypto that don't know anything about the Fed. And that's kind of one of those things where I feel like you should probably know those things, because at a very high level, those macroeconomic trends have a very big impact on price when it looks like in a short, medium, and long term.
I'm so glad you've probably shared an unpopular opinion, at least to the audience that you're speaking to right now, right? If we assume that the average person watching this right now is 51% in crypto, right? And that 51% is modest. But that they're leaning more towards crypto as their main investment portfolio. And myself included, reading a book like Jekyll Island and understanding the story of the Federal Reserve, that is boring. And it's still
It
boring
is
today.
boring stuff.
There you
It is
go.
boring stuff.
You heard it from Solo. However, building wealth isn't sexy. Building wealth isn't always fun. And that's whether you buy into the conspiracy theories, right, that they use big words to keep people out.
Yeah.
The bottom line is there is certain terminology and language that you have to speak to understand and make money in this space. And
Yeah.
if you allow that to be a barrier, then you're never going to be able to play the game, at least at the levels that we want to. And so it sounds like you agree with quite a bit what I've said. Do you want to add anything on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super important to know that the market is an amalgamation of everyone's perspectives. And I think being able to better understand the game theory component of markets is super important. And if you live in an echo chamber, you have no idea or ability to, I guess, assess how a different demographic of people might react some certain type of news. And that kind of makes it a lot harder for you to make informed investment decisions. And then lastly, too, I think the idea of being able to keep a rational mind and detach yourself from an investment. You don't need to always buy Bitcoin just because you love Bitcoin, right? Understanding that there are opportunities for you to get in, opportunities for you to get out, and be able to better manage the asset class over time is super important. And so I think that's kind of what happens when you're too deep into an asset class, and you're too deep into an asset class just for the sake of being a champion of it. You sometimes may not make the most rational investment decisions. Not saying that there aren't other reasons to why you hold Bitcoin through a bear market. Not saying you shouldn't do those things, but I guess understanding kind of the opportunities to come in and come out and trade the market within reason, because you're never ever going to really time the top or really ever going to time the bottom. But just be able to, within reason, be able to manage is something that's super important for any rational investor.
Couldn't agree more. It goes without saying you need an element of belief in what you hold, right? And that belief, of course, has to constantly be reassessed on that logical level, right? Like you say, it may have started off and you may have fallen in love with the founders, the vision, the community. But as you just stated there, time passes, things change, and your life changes. And so you need to constantly be reassessing, is this still the right asset class for me to be holding? And I say asset class because you pointed out a really good point. There's more to investing than just crypto. And so understanding, I think you said it was an amalgamation of society's perceptions. Sorry if I've butchered that. How did you phrase it?
Yeah, I'd say the market, like the price is amalgamation of people's thoughts and like their general thoughts and feelings and sentiments towards an asset at any point in time. And so I think it's just important to keep in mind that there are a lot of opportunities to generate wealth when you understand that trajectory of where people are entering and exiting the market. Not saying that, like, again, there are reasons why you hold an asset through all that volatility just because you don't care to. You may not have the objective. Your time horizon might be much longer out, so it may not matter. And so expending that energy to get in and out of an asset may not be worth it. But my point is like any rational trader should care more about buying an asset at a good price and selling it at a better price is the general goal of investing. And so I think a lot of times people get focused on the name of the asset too much versus kind of where that asset is trading, whether it's high or low. And it's super important to be mindful of that in the long term to maximize the amount of money that you might make.
Powerful. Man, Solo, I'm kind of gutted I haven't had you on sooner. Okay, nothing before it's time. I want to stop us here and I want us to move over to your weakness now, purely because I know if I keep digging and pulling out gems from you, we'll never be able to transit. So
yeah,
I know for a fact I've learned something just from that first segment. But now we want to go into the more vulnerable part, which some people struggle to talk about. Some people love it. Some say, hey, my superpower is my weakness. So for you, what is your weakness?
It's funny you just said it, but I'd say it kind of is that, just because the more sophisticated you might be or equipped to analyze markets, the more you might actually be slowed down from making the best decisions. Sometimes the best decision is making a decision versus not making a decision. So sometimes I find myself over analyzing markets a lot, and it slows my ability to act, and you might miss opportunities entirely. And so I think a lot of times people are very, very stuck on doing their processes, and sometimes their processes could be very long and drawn out, which make it a lot harder for them to capitalize on anything, period. And so I'd say that's probably my biggest weakness is analysis by paralysis, just doing a little bit too much before making the actual move, and just being sophisticated enough to think about, what about this? Well, what about that? What about this? What about that? Spencer actually suffers from that a lot as well. Just being a little bit too sophisticated and able to make a decision. And so, like I said before, sometimes the worst decision you can make is not making a decision in time.
I can speak to that because last week Donald Trump released his NFTs. Did you buy Solo?
I did not buy that.
You and I would be 5x right now.
I know he probably should have bought it, but like, there's the super investor share. Sometimes you don't invest in certain things just because, even if you're gonna make money.
That's fine. There's a principle there. There's a principle, and
A little bit.
and so you said that you and Spencer, right? You both have this weakness, which is really intriguing to me because you often hear in good business practice, right, whatever that may be, that you and especially your co-founder should complement one another. How, of course, I know you can't speak on Spencer's behalf. How do you then manage your analysis paralysis by analysis?
I would say for us, we are very blessed to have a very great team overall. And so people in the Hedera community are probably familiar with the Calaxy team. So it's not just myself and Spencer. We have Rusty, we have Cooper, we have Chad, we have a lot of different people, Mike as well, Pedro. And so we have a very diverse set of experiences within our team. We have many decades of experience within our team. And it's super important that all of those are weighted pretty equally. And so the beauty of decentralized frameworks is that it's pretty second nature for us to apply that to just about any decision whatsoever. But the beauty of it is at the same time is we're all very much so in favor of letting the players play. That's a lot of my management style. Is like if I have a person that's hired to do marketing, I have a lot of ideas. I can think about a lot of ways for how we can market things, but that's not my area of expertise. And so you hire for exactly that reason. And so for us, we very much so rely on people's superpowers and help them capitalize where they can. And that's usually what's best for the company long term anyway.
I can speak to that with my own investing strategy, right? Is I understand as well that there's things that I'll miss. And so I surround myself with two powerhouses. Whenever I have an investment decision, although we missed the NFT drop with Donald Trump, I'll chuck it in there to see if they see something that I can't see. Do you have, although you've got a team for Calaxy and it sounds like that building a tremendous empire, for your own personal investments, do you have a soundboard or do you kind of just trust your own gut and move?
I do have a soundboard. I have a couple people that I have pretty good friends with that actually have very opposite opinions. I have a lot of friends that are outside of the world of crypto, and they're more so a lot more in traditional assets. And I think it helps me inform me how those audiences are thinking about it because there are people that are here for the technology and there are people that are here to make money, right? And that's kind of where crypto investing is at. And so I'm very curious about what the people that are here to make money are doing, just because that has a very big, overwhelming impact on the price, right? If you think about the entire asset class size for crypto, it's so small compared to traditional markets that there's so many people here just to make money that they actually impact the price a lot more than you would think than the people that are diehards here. And so having an understanding about that, and when it goes back to the amalgamation example or like people's thoughts and sentiments, if you have no idea how people outside the echo chamber, act with crypto, that's going to impact your ability to trade effectively long term. And so for me, I have a robust list of or board of directors, if you will, of different types of people that help keep me honest in my opinions and the most rational thought. And so at the end of the day, if someone came to me tomorrow and came up with the greatest reasoning as to why blockchain would never manifest into something, I would be happy and welcoming of that conversation. Because as a smart investor, a super investor, a rational investor, at the end of the day, you have to remain rational. And so yesterday's news is only as good as yesterday. And so if someone were to tell me that blockchain didn't matter, we're going to go back to a centralized environment because this is the best thing that we need, I would love that because honestly, I'd want to make money off of it. And I'd want to be able to get out of the assets and buy the assets that are going to be the assets of the future. I'm of the opinion today that blockchain is the future. So that's why I remain heavily invested. But the smart investors, and you always have to keep yourself honest, is like falling in love with an asset too much for the sake of falling for it might actually stop your ability to make the most effective trades.
It's a fascinating dichotomy, right? And it's a hypothesis. That's probably the best way I've managed to come up with it through, speaking to people like yourself, Solo, is we are scientists right now. We have a hypothesis. And I used to resent the word bet because bet implies gambling. But then I read a book called Thinking in Bets. Familiar with the book or the title?
I've not actually read that.
Okay. And I'm a speed reader, so I've read a lot of books. My previous business teaching people speed reading. So I've read, I don't say hundreds of books, but I've read a lot. And Thinking in Bets is now up there in the top 10. And the reason why, because it talks about how life is a series of bets. Right? That you bet when you choose what you're going to wear to go out in the house, that will keep you warm enough for the climate out there. But you're making a bet. Because at the end of the day, there is no certainty other than there is no certainty.
That's a good
And
point.
so when we are placing a bet on investing in, for example, HBAR or investing in Calaxy as a company, we're placing a bet and making a decision. Now, that's the only thing we can control is our decision making. We can't control the outcome, or maybe you can, Solo, but I can't control the outcome of the success of Calaxy. And when we really get to it, nor can you, Solo. You can make a good decision that you hope will lead to a good outcome. But even if the outcome's bad, it doesn't mean your decision was bad. They're not,
Yep.
They can be mutually exclusive, where
Exclusive,
a
yeah.
good decision and a bad outcome. Do you recall of a time, and I don't want to ask a personal question of like an investment that's failed, but do you recall where you had made a bet hypothesis, it didn't play out, and what did you change about your decision-making process as a result? And maybe you haven't made it yet. And that's fine.
No, I've certainly made bad investment decisions. I think for me, I've fallen victim to the very things that I tell people that, it's really crazy because people always tell you buy, hold, stomach the volatility. If you have conviction, you have to understand that if you're buying something that has a potential opportunity, the biggest opportunities to make money are when the market is overwhelmingly mispricing an asset and they're against you. And being that person that lives outside the consensus is a very tough thing to be, especially as you see red flooding into your screen. And so I think for myself, I've fallen victim to that exact same thing that I tell people, where it's like, cutting your losses just because it's not even about whether or not you make money at the end of the day. It's like, is the money that you're making going to be worth the mental headache that you're going to go through to keep your positions on and things like that. And so I've definitely made a couple of investments and pulled out of investments early at the pressure of others, which is something that you should never do as a rational investor. If you have your opinions, at the end of the day, you should never, especially with your own money, buy something or act on anything that you don't truly believe in. And I don't know if I truly believed in divesting out of this particular investment at any point in time, but I did so because of the overwhelming pressure that I was feeling from external forces. And so I think for myself, that's probably the biggest thing moving forward to correct that. Just keeping myself honest, writing about it to the point where I talk about it publicly, where I feel like I owe it to myself to live out what I write and things like that. So I think writing more has helped me keep that accountability out and direct, just because I write for Rolling Stone, write for Entrepreneur, write about different ways people can invest in our asset class safely. And so I think that's helped me a lot.
Wow. Right. Niall, producer, make sure you edit that. So because that right there, Solo, is golden. And, if I could, I would have put that as the intro. In fact, Niall, make sure it's the intro. Because writing, I know we're coming short on time. There's so many benefits, right? People may have heard about using writing as a meditation practice, right? To become centered and analyze how you truly feel about maybe trauma in the past. But what you're talking about is how writing keeps you accountable. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it makes it real, right? Because saying it out loud or even saying it in your head to yourself, writing it down is one thing, but then you're publishing your work, that accountability, even if no one pulls you up on it. But now subconsciously that there's at least one person other than you who's going to remember what you put out.
Exactly. And I think for myself, it's definitely stepping into a role of being like a pseudo public figure or somebody that's in a position of leadership with a platform. It's super important to remain and keep your integrity. And so for me, it's been super validating. It's been super relieving. It's been super liberating to have the platform to write my thoughts. And I think the power that I've been able to instill in others to do things like myself because of it has been super important. And so when I make decisions, I really do look back at what I write and make sure that I'm abiding by and living out everything that I, put out for the public to consume.
And that doesn't always mean it's going to be a good outcome, but at least you made a good decision, right?
Exactly. At least I try my best.
Now, Solo, on that note, we're coming to the end of the show. And I always want to give our guests a chance to leave the audience with one last thing to remember, because people remember the most at the beginning and at the end. So what's one last thing you would love the audience to remember?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you having me on the show, Jordan. I would say the number one thing I'd want people to remember is that we are dedicated and we are very, very committed to finding a way to bring Hedera to the masses. And we are understanding of the fact that doing that is a tall task, but doing it is something that you have to do right once and not try and rush things for the sake of rushing them. And so we appreciate all the support and patience that we've had from the community members over the years. But we promise that it's going to be worth the wait. And so I appreciate you for having me on the show and being able to connect and have another outlet.
Likewise, Solo. And, I said at the beginning of the show offline that, I want to bring people who are ahead of their time on the show. And, you're showing equal support because, my show's growing just as your presence is growing within the space. So I look forward to returning the favor in the future when I've got a bigger platform. You've got an even bigger platform, and I'm still never going to feel indebted to you. I'm still going to feel like I have to pay it forward to you. So I'm going to say you're welcome, but thank you for being here, Solo.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Till next time. Ciao, bro.